Hi, good morning. Hi, it's a little after 9, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jennifer Kirkpatrick, for those I haven't met before. Thank you all for coming. We have Jodie Perry, Mayor of Mansfield, with us today. Really excited to hear what she has to say, some updates on the city and some ongoing initiatives. So thank you for being here today.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here this morning. After 10 years with the Chamber, actually, I have never been to the Board of Realtors building. So, of course, I've interacted with a lot of you over the years, but great to be here this morning. I hope to make this interactive, so please feel free as we're going through. I'm going to hit highlights, but if you have questions, raise your hand, write them down, whatever, because I'd love to be able to answer just whatever is on your mind and kind of give you a little bit of insights of what's happening at the city. And just so I don't forget, I do have a couple of things to ask for your help on when we get to the end. So if I forget to do that, will you remind me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm 5 months in now as mayor, which is kind of hard to believe. It felt like the campaign season lasted for about 14 years. And then actually, I think the longest part was between Election Day and taking office in January. That whole transition time was just busy and a lot of anticipation. But, probably the biggest question I'm asked everywhere I go is, how's it going? What are you enjoying? And it's going well. I'm enjoying it a lot, actually. And the thing I'm enjoying most is just getting to do the job finally. So, after talking about it and kind of, it felt like you're making promises forever and ever and ever. Now you can start to make good on those promises. You probably, hopefully you're following the city's Facebook page. I also have a mayor Facebook page. If you're not, I would certainly encourage you to do those. One of the lowest hanging fruit I thought I had walking into office was improving our communication. Certainly internally in the city, Councilwoman here knows that, but also externally, probably more importantly, externally with the community. And so I am the one running the city's Facebook page, and obviously my own page too. So, trying to just share things from the city itself, but also, like this week I've been sharing all the things that are happening for youth this summer, because I know we all share a lot of concern about what is happening with our youth. And as much as I would love to say, hey, the city has this fully stocked recreational program all set for summer of 2024, the truth is we don't. We do have things going on, but many, many other organizations are doing things for our youth. So I try to use it as a tool to just get that word out. And I know you all are master networkers. You all have your pulse on what's happening in the community, and you all have a real opportunity to share things. So I would encourage you, when you see things on our page that you think would be helpful for residents, others looking to come here, please, please, please share those. Because the more that we can get the word out, I think the more that will start to change the story that we tell ourselves about Mansfield. And I think that often the story we tell ourselves about Mansfield is a sad story. It's a story of decline. It's a story of going down the hill. And I don't think actually that has to be our future, certainly. And I think, right now we're kind of in this, it could go either way moment. I felt like that was really what motivated me to run for office. Was I felt like we were at a pivotal point. We had to make some decisions as a community that could move our trajectory in a positive way. Or if we didn't choose to make decisions that way, then we were going to continue on that story of decline. And so I always try, through Facebook when I'm out speaking, to talk about the positive things that are happening. I have traveled all around the world, all around the country. I have yet to see a perfect community, though everyone wants to tell me about a perfect community, right? There's Nirvana over here, or it's, over there. But there is no perfect community. There are only communities in progress. And I think that we very much are in progress. Part of one of the projects I was involved with at the Chamber was the community branding process. Hopefully you've all seen the new community brand sideways here on my little, but we're using it. We have a Mansfield version that we're using at the city. And the brand promise behind that, that's just the logo. The brand promise behind that the branding company helped us uncover was, that we really are in Richland County as a whole, a story in the making. very much in the midst of transforming. Words that they used, you're building, you're not built. You're transforming, you're this dynamic entity, which is very unique from some other communities, is a positive way, right? But we're not done. And so to me, that's exciting. That's way more exciting than, a community that has arrived, so to speak, the Dublins of the world or New Albany. I mean, those are fun to visit, right? But this is very much a community in the midst of transformation, and we need everyone's help to make it happen. So 3 things that I'm focusing on in my first term as mayor: growth, infrastructure, and safety. I don't think there's any surprises there. Everyone can look around and see why those are the choices. But let me start with growth. And I think maybe most importantly to you all, to me, when I say growth, I am talking about jobs, but I'm also talking about residents. So Mansfield actually, in the last census estimate, which just came out a couple weeks ago, grew. The city of Mansfield grew for the first time. I think we technically grew last year too. We did not grow in the 2020 census. The county did, but the city did not. But they are estimating that we are growing now. A couple hundred people, but that's growth. And it's not what was happening for decades before. We were definitely on a path of population decline. I want to lean into that. We are all watching Columbus move steadily north on 71. There's a lot of housing discussion happening. We at the chamber, I was part of the countywide housing study that happened that basically came out and said you are way understocked, right? And the stock that you have isn't probably the stock you need. So we got a lot of issues there. But Mansfield, in some of our surrounding communities, which I still love all of our surrounding communities, they weren't built for bigger populations. So when they're weighing decisions about growth, it's a different story for them. We have the utilities, we have the space, we have the schools, we have kind of what we need to be able to grow. And so I think we as a community, specifically the city of Mansfield, need to lean into that. So I'm very interested in trying to spur new housing growth at all income levels. For some odd reason, I choose to look at the comments on Facebook, though I usually regret it later. But the other night at council, we approved a planned unit development. It's going to be owner-occupied kind of condos. But, I read comments and it's like, man, we need affordable housing. And I agree. We do need affordable housing, without a doubt. But as you all know, when you open up housing at other income levels, there's this shift that starts to happen. And, that's a story we very much need to help people understand. There actually is a very massive affordable housing expansion happening that way at Turtle Creek. I believe that's 100+ units. So certainly the most significant affordable housing expansion that we've seen in a long time. And we're hearing from other developers, local and out of town, they're sniffing around, I guess is what I would call it. There's not, this thing that's coming that, that we can announce. There's nothing been signed, things like that. But I think Richland County and Mansfield is getting a specific look, and we need to look at that. We need to lean into it. Certainly, of course, near and dear to my heart when I talk about growth is business growth, job growth. You want people coming here, you need jobs for them too. So, really looking at what we can do out at the airport, specifically in the industrial park. There's opportunities there. The city, I hate when I hear people talk and they say, well, we used to be a manufacturing town, but those jobs are all gone. And that is just not true. In the county, there's still over 10,000 manufacturing jobs. It's still one of our largest, if not the largest sector of employment. It is true, we do not have the marquee names that we used to, the GMs, the Westinghouses, things like that. But there is absolutely thousands and thousands of jobs at the airport, I promise you, in manufacturing. It's just, I think a lot of times people don't drive up there and they don't see it. Ohio is certainly getting a lot of looks from all around the world after the Intel project. And I don't know if any of you have driven down there, But I had a chance to do that about 6 weeks ago, and I've never seen anything like that in Ohio, certainly. There was like 13 cranes on the site, just massive, massive trucks, just incredible. And certainly, I know from my time at the chamber, it is increasing the amount of looks that we're getting. Now, I would love to stand up here and say, hey, I have this big win that we can announce for the city of Mansfield, and we don't yet. But we're getting at bats, which is important. Just like in baseball, you got to have the more chances you get, the more opportunity for wins. And those at bats are increasing. I think Mansfield does have a lot of strategic advantages. And I think the city can do a few more things to help make that more possible. And so, we're talking about a lot of that right now. Certainly also jobs, though, is also the small businesses. So, really looking at our commercial districts. I'm sure I'll get a question about West Park, but, places like that need help. Those are the things that we also need to be focusing on. So then next would be infrastructure. We do have a lot of building going on. I had a conversation with our engineer the other day. He was talking to the finance department, and they were just, all saying like, I don't remember this amount of projects happening in the city of Mansfield in recent memory. From small things, but storm sewer fixes. Obviously, we have a very massive rebuild of Main Street that's going to kick off next year. If you haven't had a chance to watch that fly-through video, please do. I've worked on that project since day one. I have seen all the pictures. I knew what we were doing, but when I got to visualize it through the video, I was like, oh, this is going to be really cool. So it is going to be tough during construction. So we will be doing a lot of messaging. We're just kind of starting to talk about that. How do we make sure we're bringing people downtown to support the businesses that are there during construction? But it'll be about an 18-month build. So, and it's going to go slower so that we don't have to shut things down as much. We could just shut it all down and get it done in a short amount of time, but that would be too painful and not worth the risk to the businesses. So, that's a big one. There's a lot happening with trails. So, when you're selling the community, I definitely would encourage you to keep an eye on that. This summer, a tunnel is being built under Trimble Road. Next summer, the trail will connect from the tunnel to the bike trail. So I know right now everyone's like, it's a tunnel to nowhere. And for a very short time, that will be true. But I promise you, there is a larger vision there. And beyond that, the trail will then eventually continue down Marion Avenue into downtown. We also would love to connect it on the north end. So from North Lake Park into downtown. And, there's, I think Gorman Rupp is open. They've got some key land there. Of course, really the biggest hiccup there is just money. That minor thing that we need to make things work. So, that's going to come in stages. But there's, trails. I think when people are evaluating a community to live in, certainly recreation and parks is a big factor. So, from that piece, that's kind of the long-term vision. In terms of parks, we are absolutely doing a lot since January. Right now, I would say it's a lot of smaller things, which is good, kind of just getting some momentum going. We do want to have some larger projects, though, eventually, like a pool, things like that. So we're trying to take this year to start planning for things like that. But there's new park equipment. It's in the Maple Lake Park already. It has been installed. Next week, it starts at Prospect Park. Both of those parks had not adequate playground equipment and, in fact, unsafe playground equipment. Also, as an aside, playground equipment is extremely expensive. So when you look at that new stuff, you're going to be like, wow, that's so awesome. That costs like $70,000. And it is awesome, but it's, I feel like $70,000 should go farther than it actually does. There has been a lot happening just up the street here at Burton Park, of course. Pickleball courts are very, very popular. There's paving. We put a new roof on in there. The art sector has been doing some beautification in there. So one of the coolest things to me has been watching people start to get excited about the community again. And we have had a lot of groups approaching us saying, hey, we want to help. We see you're doing things. What can we do? Probably the best example of that is happening at Liberty Park, where, we are, as the city, making some investments. So it's getting repaved. We're putting in new sidewalks. But we have had multiple volunteer groups step up. So the baseball fields are being completely recut and redone by Madison. Some volunteers from Madison, I believe it's their junior high middle school that's going to use that as their home field. Of course, we have the skate park, which is very cool and always in progress. A very motivated group of folks kind of transforming that area. We have the VFW, who is redoing the flagpole there and restoring that. It was not in great shape. We just announced the other night the Coca-Cola Foundation is resurfacing the basketball courts at Liberty Park. So they're going to be like that Versa court style, new hoops. We're working on trying to get better lighting, some things like that going in. The Rewild Liberty Park group, it has kind of redone the stream bed there. So there's some plantings that have gone in. Mansfield Baptist Temple is building a new wooden footbridge over the stream for us. So our crews have put kind of the concrete footings in, but I believe the bridge is going in next week is what Louis told me. So that's a big thing. And the Friends of Liberty Park has done a lot of other things kind of in conjunction with all these projects. We have an ask into the foundation. I'm hoping there's a donor who loves Liberty Park. We really want to refinish the sandstone bathhouse. At some point it was painted orange and that needs to come off. The sandstone needs to be refinished. We did try to reopen the pool at Liberty. It's a really long story, but the fix could have been fixed, probably for a decent amount of money, but I think that could have been accomplished. The problem is it fell out of license in the last couple of years at the state, which means you have to go back to the state health department. So we knew right off the bat, even back in January, there was no way this could open in 2024. And basically, the state health department said, yep, now it needs to come up to code because it's out of license. So you're starting new. And a 60-year-old pool is coming up to code. They still actually, Mark and Louis still went down that path. And when they got close to $750 to $1 million, I was just like, stop getting close. Like, that wasn't even all in. Like, that was just like, I'm just like, stop. If we're going to put that amount of money into something, let's make it new. And so that we're, hopefully getting another 60 years out of something. So obviously disappointing, and I know I want to have a pool. I want to have a public pool. Not everyone loves them. I get it. But I do think it's really important for our community. So if you have thoughts, ideas, that's what we're going to be doing this year is planning and looking at the spot. I don't know that it'll go in Liberty. I think it's probably, if we're going to have one, it would be a little more centrally located. So then that kind of leaves, well, what do we do with the old pool? And so we're kind of having a lot of conversation about that right now. But parks are important. And that's the biggest thing I want you to hear from me in terms of parks is just that, certainly at this point, our new public works director, his background is in parks. If you haven't met Louis Andrus, he was at Malabar for 25 years, Muskingum Watershed District for 10. So he has really a lot of actually the small things that you've seen that are making our parks look better. He is the driving force behind that. He has come in and he's really teaching them how to look at first impressions and things like that. And, I had a little bit of a conversation with a group last night about parks, and the city divested of some parks some years ago, and it's taken me some time because we have a lot of parks. So one of the challenges we have is a lot of parks and not a lot of people to take care of them, which is why the city divested of some of them. And I think though now I'm starting to see the value of what we do have. And the strategic advantage that Mansfield has over any of our surrounding communities is that almost everyone in town, there are a couple areas, but almost everyone in town lives within a walkable distance to a public park. Now, granted, they are not all Marshall Park. Marshall Park is amazing. I love Marshall Park, right? So our parks aren't Marshall Park, but everyone is within a walkable distance to a park. And so when people are evaluating quality of life, I think that's really important. And then that is a strategic advantage we in the city need to lean into and sell that. So every park is not going to be, all of the amenities, right? I think there's some basic things every park should have. But then some of our more marquee parks, like what can we do to make them a little bit more well-known? So that's kind of our vision, I would say, for the parks over the next few years. I'm hopeful that that's an area we can bring in outside money and not just have to look at local taxpayer dollars, though that certainly is a key factor. So, and then the last piece on infrastructure I'll just, mention is obviously a couple months ago, the water main tax passed. So that will begin to be levied in the new year. We are currently planning for the first year of build out of that. So you'll hear a lot more soon. I would be happy to come back when that is announced and where that's going to be to kind of help you to know. That will be the most significant amount of utility investment this community has made, or any surrounding community, quite frankly, in a long time. So we know there's a lot of eyes on it. There's a lot of expectations on it. We want to try to leverage it as far as we can go, bring in outside money if we can through state or federal programming. So we're on the beginning side of that. But again, I think that should be a strategic advantage for the community if we do it right, and if we talk about it and tell people what we're doing. Because really, when you do drive around and look at fire hydrants, there's a shocking amount of them that are not in service, so which is very concerning. So last piece is safety, and then I'll open it up to questions. This one, I probably don't need to say why. Obviously, we need to talk about safety, but we have had a very concerning trend happening in our community around, particularly around violence as a whole, but youth violence in particular. And there's a lot of discussion happening. Last year, the city had 12 homicides. 12 homicides in a city of our size is just, it's unreal. It's tragic, first of all, for the family. I have talked with mothers who've lost their kids. I have talked with family members who have lost folks. It's tragic. It is really tragic. And it is something very much we need to change. And, I think that there is no single solution to this. A lot of folks are convinced there's, just hire more police and that's going to fix it. Even the police will tell you, you're not going to police yourself out of this problem. Yes, we do need an adequately staffed police force. We are understaffed. And that is not a money issue, by the way. That's just a challenge of hiring police officers. That is true across the country. There are very few, certainly in urban areas, there are very few police departments that are fully staffed. It's just the environment that we're in. The city actually, under Mayor Thaker, took some really good steps to try to change how they're recruiting officers. We are continuing that and having further discussions of how can we do that. We're around, I think, 76 right now. We have money for 87. So that's a significant amount that we're missing, which means, our officers can't be proactive in the way that they would like to be and that they should be. I went to a very, I would say, impactful conversation 2 weeks ago about the impacts of violence from people who have either directly been hurt in a shooting or lost a loved one. And interestingly enough, all of them said, man, I remember when I was growing up, police officers could get out of their cars and shoot hoops with us. We could interact with them. And the officers, there was officers in the room, our chief, our former chief, detective, others. And they're like, we want to be able to do that with you, but we can't right now because of our staffing. And so that is really something that, our current chief, our new safety service director, myself, we are really focusing on so that we can get back to a point where we could have community policing. But that is not going to solve it. It really is going to also be a lot of community. So all that stuff I said before about parks, that's a piece. Safety is also a piece of why we're focusing on parks. Everything I said about, housing, about jobs, that all factors in to safety. These things are so intermingled. And I think sometimes, certainly on the internet, nobody thinks of things in a complicated way, right? It's all there's a problem, there's one issue, right? And that's not the truth. It very much is going to require the city and the schools to work closer together, which we are starting to do. We're having more regular conversations. So I think that there's a lot of factors there. But that's kind of around safety, the things that we need to talk about. And I, as much as a recovering Chamber of Commerce leader, as someone who is, I hope to be the community's biggest cheerleader, you cannot ignore the fact that this is happening. Obviously, we don't want every headline focusing on that, right? That's not going to help us sell the community and change it. But we also have to admit there's an issue. Because if we never do that, we will never fix it. And so, again, I always try to just be realistic. There's a lot of good stuff. There's so many reasons to be optimistic about Mansfield's future. But we have real problems that we're going to have to solve. And by the way, Mansfield is not alone in this. Big cities, I'm in a group of, it's called the Ohio Mayor's Alliance. It's the 30 largest cities in Ohio. We're number 23, fun fact. And every mayor there, well, there's a couple suburban ones. Maybe they don't have quite the same issues, right? But any mayor with an urban area is absolutely seeing the same things. And I will tell you, last summer, kind of at the height of everything that was happening in terms of shootings. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I don't, who knows how to solve this? I'm running for office. People are looking for answers and I don't know. And they invited me to their summer event, just even as a candidate. And I felt like I could breathe again because here were other people in the same situation sharing what their communities were doing, the efforts they were making for their youth. And they were starting to see some change and a trajectory change. And I was like, okay, this is possible. We can do this, and it is possible. And we definitely can do it. So the last thing before I forget, how can you help? I do need your help. Well, 3 things. First, please, please, please share the word, talk positively about Mansfield in particular. I know you sell all over the county. I know you sell all over the area, but please help us. Even if I am not against any of our surrounding counties. We work so well together here, or communities rather, but help us change the narrative about Mansfield specifically. 2, when you're talking to people, this is a zoning thing for us. When you're selling property or helping people look at property, if you're not sure, we have some areas where they've been grandfathered in on things. But then if they've sat empty, this just happened the other day on South Main. It says commercial on the auditor's site. That does not mean the zoning. Just call our codes and permits. We would be happy to just quickly confirm before someone spends a lot of money and then we're the big bad guys being like, I'm sorry, that doesn't fit the zoning in that area. And I think some calls on that would be helpful. And I totally forgot the third thing that I was going to say. Hopefully it'll come to me before the ad. But with that, I'd be happy to open it up to any questions that you have. Yes, Nate.
When you're doing these improvements in parks and things, really? Can you hear me now?
You get the tiny mic.
When you're doing these promotions for these parks and trying to get people active, are you allowing for sponsorship signs to get them motivated to put their name out there. Like MAR supports, the building of a bridge or whatever, footbridge or et cetera. So that you get more people invested to get motivated to do this, to help volunteer. And also on these parks, have you considered asking some of these groups to volunteer to cut the grass, and you guys pay for the mower and the gas and things like that? Because over the years, I've just seen that, where they're closing the swimming pool, and, Merv Schaffner was great because every year he would give money to the pools to keep them open. And it was a great promotion for him. He was on the radio. And I think more people would be involved if they got something in return, even if it's a pat on the back, just a couple things.
Yeah. The short answer to that is yes, we are definitely open to that. So the Coca-Cola Foundation Court at Liberty is going to be branded with the Coke. I think it's Body Armor is the brand they're using for this one with that logo. I think it just all has to be within reason. But we're having some conversation with the Rotary Club about maybe a pavilion. And I'm like, you can if you are the lead gift and it's, significant enough to get the thing going, absolutely it could be the Rotary Pavilion at such and such a park. So yeah, absolutely open to that. And certainly open to people helping us. I think the mowing piece probably isn't the area, but planting, there's a lot that volunteers can help us do at the parks. So I've been telling everybody, and please spread the word. If you all want to do a project, great. If you know folks or you're involved in another group that would want to do a project, please call. We'd be happy to kind of go over things that we're hearing people talk about as needs. I'd love a dog park. There's a lot of things that we could add into our parks. So, who I think has been really good at doing that is Terry Brankus down in Belleville. She has gotten a lot of things done without having to use taxpayer dollars. The dog park being a big one. And so it is very, very possible to do that. And I think, Mansfield, that's what I'm trying to encourage the city staff to think like, we don't have to just rely on our own funding sources. And the Richland County Foundation is great, and we are absolutely asking them for as much as we can, but there are other places beyond that. So, and I think people are starting to pick up on that, but yes, that was a long answer to. Yes.
This is under Stacy. I live on Westview Boulevard. And I can see Ray Milton School. So Cook Road, heading to Trimble, heading to Lexington Avenue, has this nasty curve in it. My neighbor was in an accident just a week ago and has 6 broken ribs. Because she pulled out of Westview Boulevard. My neighbor turned on to Woodland to go right on to Cook Road. So she was going to head east.
Okay.
But the traffic that comes heading east, we can't see them. And then even the traffic on Cook Road coming and traveling west has this curve. And when it's dark, I know there's signs like the yellow things.
Yeah, the arrows.
And about 10 years ago, a person was killed there because they just went too fast.
Yeah.
My thinking is, I don't know if the city can look at the situation and put up a sign that says slow down or something like that, but have the blinking lights
around that.
Because on a yearly basis, there's at least 2 accidents a year, and some are more serious than others. Some are just wipeouts. Somebody wiped out and took this boulder under their truck.
That's
so if
yeah.
the street department could look at that.
Yep, I'll be happy to ask him. You didn't happen to just email me about that, did you? I think someone just emailed me in the last few weeks. So I do think in fact, I know I forwarded it to the engineer's office, but I will follow up and ask. I'm on Davis in Woodland. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah. Traffic is, traffic is definitely one of the areas I get a lot of complaints about in Mansfield. Utilities probably is the other one, but I think, we would love to do more. Again, it's a challenge, but yeah, I'll be happy to ask. So sure. There was another.
I have a question.
Okay.
Where did you just approve a condo development?
That is on South Main, Brushwood Estates. So it was originally platted 30 years ago, I think someone told me, just never built out. So now there's someone that's going to build it out. So, oh, I think she's back there.
Oh, with the investment in parks and improvements, do you have a plan to limit the vandalism and graffiti and all of that as you improve the parks?
Yes and no to that. Is there a plan? No. Are we having discussions? Yes.
I mean, increase police patrols of the parks, is that on
the issue with that again is we're understaffed on policing. So we are though looking at security and kind of investigating, particularly in some of our larger parks where there's larger investments being made. Cameras, kind of what other tools could go in there. You need internet, obviously. So we're kind of solving for a couple of those issues right now. Circle Park, there's a massive multi-million-dollar build out happening in there. That one does have security in it. And so now we're talking about, okay, let's look at Liberty, let's look at North Lake, because yes, I mean, definitely, sometimes you do something, you work so hard, and then a week later it's destroyed. I do think actually the other piece is if our parks get used more, that will cut down on that. So programming and getting people back into the parks is also going to be a huge assistance with that, but we're talking about it. Again, I think it comes down to money. I mean, once upon a time, the parks had their own police. There was park police. And I mean, I would love to be able to go back to that, but that's just not, that is nowhere in any immediate offing short of Intel dropping from the sky and, dropping $5 million more in our budget. So, which is okay, Intel, if you're out there. So yeah, but good question. And definitely something we're talking about. So also, I would say too, the community has learned just some of the, like I know with all the murals that are being put in, there's the graffiti proofing being put on things now too, so that things are getting easier to clean up. And so, we're trying to take best practices from other communities on that. Yes.
I just have a couple comments of appreciation, and then I also have a question. So the first comment is I really appreciate the city's willingness to work on the parks, and we live across from Burton Park, and we've been seeing all the improvements. We've been there for 12 years. I've never seen this many improvements happen in a year span. So we really love that. And from the art sector, we're working with the art sector. Working with the city to plan that park improvement day was just so smooth. And we really appreciate the city's cooperation and enthusiasm to improving those areas. And also, I really appreciate that you're committed to addressing the material conditions of the city as a way to improve the overall safety and to curb the violence. I really appreciate that strategy. So the question I do have is, does the city have any plans to address public transportation?
So to take your question literally, do we have a plan? No. Is it a conversation that we're having? Yes. Right now, the city currently contributes to Richland Richland County Transit, RCT, through our block grant funds. I would love to be able to give beyond that because the block grant funds pot is getting smaller. And so our contributions to that have grown smaller over the years. I think Jean Taddy was probably one of the first people in my office in January. Hey, we need this. And I'm all in on transit. We need it. It is a key differentiator for a community of our size. If we lose it, we will never get it back. And the challenge is, how do you make it fit? Because not enough people ride it because it doesn't either fit their schedule or it doesn't go to the places they want. But in order to do that, you need so much more money to make the routes that way. I do know the transit board themselves just came out with a new strategic plan, and they are talking about that. And they're also looking at just the new technology that exists to try to help make things more efficient. They did add, I think this was during COVID, a route that goes up to the industrial park, which sounds like it should have been happening a long time, but it really wasn't. And that is their most, what they call productive route in terms of the amount of riders for the hours it runs. It runs during typical first shift times. So it's not going, and that's another, someone just stopped me the other day, hey, we need second shift. It's like second shift childcare. Yes. The problem is the concentration isn't enough to make it, yes, it doesn't make fiscal sense. So that's where you need subsidies coming in. Is there a thing that's going to come out soon? I don't know about that, but I do know that, and I will say, I heard the transit board is going to announce some things later this year. I don't know myself what they are yet, but they're talking about that. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, next generation is giant. And
The company, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking kids first. Yeah, okay. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure.
They have a new name now.
Yeah.
But anyways, they're always on Lexington Avenue, which I know is State Route 42.
Mm-hmm.
But these trucks go north, pick up their load, and go back to their company. Does the city get money to maintain Lexington Avenue from the state or somebody? These trucks, the weight is when they're full and the consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could see 6 or 7 trucks on there in a day.
Yeah, they are absolutely exploding. And I see those trucks all the time too. They do follow the truck route, which I am very, very appreciative of. And I want to give them a shout out if you're listening to this podcast, because not everyone follows the truck route through downtown. You're not supposed to be driving on Main Street with a semi. And you see it all the time. We are conducting some special step patrols with our police department right now. In the spring, we have been doing that to try to get trucks. They're supposed to go up Adams and around downtown. But then, yes, back on 42, that's a truck route. So they do follow that, and that I'm very appreciative of that. Does the state give us money for that? No. One of the fun facts about the state law is a city, any state route in a city is the city's responsibility. Unless the state chooses to help you, which the state did on 30. So 30 is unbelievably the city's responsibility, which is crazy to me because it's like, 71 is not, but 30 is. And short of the state giving the money to redo what just happened, I don't know when the city would have ever had that. The city has to plow 30. 42, 13, all of it. We have to do that. It's just state law. Now, through ODOT, they have grant funds that we certainly do go after to help us with that. So, it's both. The answer is no, they don't give us money, but yes, they do sometimes on projects. There is a project that's going to happen on 13 South starting next year. That's why they cleared the trees that nobody's happy about. And I would agree, it doesn't look great. We had no control over that though. But they're going to completely redo that section, and it comes from the city through the townships. It's not, no, they're just redoing it. But I think it's a rebuild. So it's a little bit more substantial than just a top coat of paving. Again, they're paying for that. So if we were having to do our portion, it would take a long time. So they do, but they do it on their schedule and their time, and not necessarily ours. So.
At least they're nice, shiny trucks.
Yeah. Whatever one, yep.
Hi, I just have a question. Does Mansfield have any intentions of like recruiting like Amazons or big tech or anything like that? Because these sleepy little steel towns, they're all the same. I actually live in Wayne County. I work with Mary a lot here in Richland County. And we have a couple of Amazon plants and they bring money for infrastructure for roads and highways and all of those things as well. Mm-hmm. And I was just, as you hear about Intel, Mansfield is just like a melting pot of facilities that could be great for the tech industry. Is the recruiting like that going on? Okay.
Yes. We've had conversations with tech companies, not necessarily Amazon, but tech companies. So yes, it's I think actually what's happening at the base, which a lot of people, maybe don't know, at the 179th, going as a cyber warfare wing now, that is going to give us a strategic advantage on tech talent. That's been, I think, our biggest issue. If you're talking about a distribution warehouse, that's a different worker skill set versus, a data hub or, other things that are more, you need a more tech oriented skill set. So our hope is that as that transitions and we get more of that in our area, that's going to increase our likelihood of attracting. We would love to diversify, right? We don't want to be all of our eggs in a basket. So 2008 doesn't happen again. I think actually, I will tell you, in my opinion, we have diversified from that already, but we need to do more. So, yeah.
Yeah, because we have like for example, in Akron, we have a lot of really old neighborhoods, just like Mansfield, and just the Amazon plant and the pool of workers that brought in production has transformed these old neighborhoods. Schools are opening again, all the things. And then on top of that, now they're trying to piggyback and bring, hiring tech companies.
Yeah.
So, I think Mansfield is perfect.
Yeah, definitely. And those are some of the at-bats we're having. Yeah. We haven't had the win yet, and I would love it, but we're trying. Yeah.
Hey, Jodie, the airport's the city's responsibility.
Indeed.
But there's been a lot of nice private investment out there as well, in the next decade, and maybe even addressing her question too. What's your wish list for the airport?
I would say my wish list for the airport is that that we can better leverage it. I think we've taken gigantic strides in the last few years. However, losing the planes for the Air Guard is a step back. So the constant battle we fight out there is, in order to keep getting FAA money, you have to have so many takeoffs and landings. And when the National Guard planes went away, obviously we lost a big chunk. The National Guard is why we have the runway size we do, the apron size we do. That's 100%. We would never have had that stuff without the Guard. But now the Guard is still there, but we're not going to get that kind of investment from the federal government anymore. So how do we continue to maintain it? Military investment, let me say it that way. The FAA is going to help us rebuild our main runway next year. That's about a $16 million project. The city's contribution to that is $800,000. So that math works all day, right? Yes, you write me that check. I will happily write you one in reverse, but we need to keep our takeoffs and landings up. So, flight school being out there has been a great addition. We're having a lot of conversation around hangar space right now and potential improvements that could be made there. When the restaurant opens, that the NISs are building, I think that will be a good boon as well. So, we want to keep air traffic control, all those kind of advantages that we have. We're never going to be a commercial passenger airport. It's just in this day and age. I mean, you can get to Port Columbus, John Glenn in 45 minutes, 50 minutes. So that's okay to me. But there's all sorts of other stuff, cargo, things like that. Yeah. And it, again, doesn't necessarily mean it's FedEx flying in 100 planes a day, but smaller things. And again, think of all those businesses out at the airport that have to ship things. So so there's definitely things that that we can do. And I do think the FBO change in NIST aviation has been a game changer for the airport, and a lot of good conversations happening.
I want to ask you about a lifelong problem that Mansfield has had forever. When we have new people coming to Mansfield and they have to drive under the viaduct, and that viaduct is so outdated, and I don't even know if we have trains that go over it anymore, but I know it has to be a headache for the city. And I was just wondering, is there ever any conversation on what could be done? There's 2 highways going through there, state highways. You'd think the state would even want something done.
That is the problem. It's the railroad, is that bridge. I mean, yes, would I love to do something, and would the city love to do something so that we don't have trucks hitting it every 3 months, or flooding, which I heard happened last night, yes. However, of all the different groups that we have to work with as a municipality, the railroads are probably the toughest. And that is, ask any mayor, any city official in any city anywhere, and everyone agrees on this. And, I just think some of that is just probably oversight, federal oversight that needs to happen. And some of it is their footprint is so massive. There's a viaduct in every small town in America. I mean, probably not literally, but close. And so how do we really fix it, I think, is the issue. But that bridge is like 100 years old. And every time I drive under it, I think, I agree. It's a terrible look. I do want to raise it with the railroad. Do I have a lot of hope that it's going to get fixed anytime soon? I do not. But, you don't get what you don't ask for. So, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Jodie. Stephanie Webb. I have a question about, you said you were at Intel touring a while back.
Yes.
And of course, we would love, something like that here. But is there plans or conversations around recruitment of those people that work there to our area? Because I know that I work with a lot of people coming up from Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
Our average sale price is half of Columbus.
Yes.
And if you are in those suburbs of Columbus, you are maybe 15 minutes shorter than just popping right down from Mansfield down 71.
Yep.
So is there conversations or a plan of how we can, increase the awareness to the people working there of our community? Because I sell in Columbus also. The prices are astronomical compared to here.
Yes.
And they get so much more for their money here, but they don't know about us. So is there plans or what is happening with that?
Yeah, good question. The best thing I can share around that is the community brand. And so we did also unveil a community branding video. However, the next step of that process is we want to do we as a community, I'm saying not necessarily the city itself, but we as a community do want to do some targeted ads down there. So, using the geofencing and things like that, where you can really get at people that are commuting. We've seen, actually the state of Ohio has done this. I don't know if any of you have seen it. Jobs Ohio has done some targeted advertising in like New York and LA, like on the coasts, of like pointing out just their ridiculous commute times and the high cost of living and how you can come to Ohio and and basically what we've talked about, it was really more at the chamber probably in that role, and Destination Mansfield and others. The city is certainly a part of that conversation, but how do we do that for Richland County as a whole and Mansfield? I think the other piece to that is we need the houses for them to come to. So, whether they're existing stock, or some new builds. So I think probably the city's role in that is what can we do to get that moving from a regulation standpoint, any other things that we need to try to clear the deck on, which, we very much want to have that conversation. So yeah, it's a great question.
To piggyback on Stephanie's question, I attended the housing study that I think the area agency had put on, and their investigation found that maybe a lot of the housing needs and empty lots and things like that kind of go around some zoning reform that they suggest. Have you guys had any talks of zoning reform?
Yes. Have we done it? No, but are we talking about it? I would like to put in next year's budget to be able to hire a consultant to walk us through a complete rezoning fix. City of Columbus just announced that, I believe. I think Sandusky has done it. Some other communities are definitely doing it. So we need it. We're busy in the planning commission because we have to give out so many variances, right? Because our zoning really just doesn't fit modern needs. And particularly when you talk about, we've done a lot of demo and kind of clearing of blight, which is good, but those lots do not meet current zoning code. And so, if you want to keep the urban core dense, which you do, generally speaking, you're going to have to fix some zoning code on that. So yes, that's a very long answer to say yes, but it's going to take a massive process. And quite frankly, we will need expertise to help us with that. But yes, we definitely want to do that.
I just have a quick question, and I guess I might answer it myself here, but when I've been talking with people about the airport and how they plan to bring more cybersecurity in my mind, that also brings a lot more intellectual abilities to this area when it comes to cyber. Is there any plan for our area to increase our security with the risk of bringing in more abilities to the area? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think I do.
I don't know that it's a good thing to have here, but it also, I feel like, kind of puts a target on this area for cyber risk. Is there any increase?
I think that's a fair
security that's coming with that coming here?
I don't know how to answer that because what I would say is they definitely do. And I'm not privy to a lot of that, but what I do know is there's a lot, and that change at the airport with the guard is that's a big deal. And I've heard them twice now say, Mansfield, our name is being talked about at the highest levels of the Pentagon. So if that gives you an idea of just how much they're looking at this mission, and a big piece of that is just the newness of it. It's a new way of doing missions. But there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars being poured in out there that you would have no idea, but it's a lot of technology. They are in touch with our police department. So, so there's definite conversation about that. Is there, some of the other stuff that you suggested? Probably not. That's not stuff we've had conversations about. But yes, from an intelligence standpoint, our safety services are in touch with, if they're seeing risks or things like that. So, yeah. Well, thank you. And if anyone has any other questions, you can always call me. I do call people back. Sometimes it might take me a day or two, or email me or send me a note on Facebook. I appreciate all the work that you do to help build our community up. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.